This is African reform. The purpose of this channel is to reform us. The purpose of this channel is to look at the person in the mirror rather than pointing the finger across the pond or across the street. Too much of African or so-called black. I'm going to use the term African because African is the name of a people and black is just a color. So when I say African, I'm talking about Africans in America, Africans in Europe, Africans in the continent of Africa, the Caribbean, Asia, etc. Anyone that identifies with an African genealogy, ethnicity, right? So I'm just going to use the term African as my blanket term rather than the term black. I think in some senses black is even a pejorative, but not to digress. Across the world, our leadership is too often focused on the actions of the oppressor. And the truth of the matter is, an oppressor can only oppress you if you're able to be oppressed. A bully can only bully someone who's weak, someone who's vulnerable, someone who's not as capable of defending themselves. The bully doesn't pick on the, you know, superstar athlete who's big and strong. The bully doesn't pick on the tough guy, right? The bully doesn't pick on the person who's brave and courageous. The bully in school is going to pick on the little weak person that they know doesn't have the ability and the strength to stand up for themselves. We're bullied because we allow ourselves to be bullied, because it's easy to bully us, right? America doesn't bully China, but America can definitely haul off and bully Sierra Leone. It can bully Sierra Leone next week if it wants to, right? You know, France bullies 14 countries simultaneously in Africa, right? France is bullying these countries every day now. Burkina Faso and Mali, are looking like they're peeling away from that, and all power to them. But it's only possible because you're weak. Now, the truth of the matter is that we can't address things from a national level in the beginning. And this is why this channel is dedicated to the person in the mirror. It's dedicated to the individual. So in this channel, you're going to hear advice, but you're also going to hear critiques. And these critiques are going to upset people. When you were young and your parents critiqued your behavior, sometimes it didn't feel so good. But hopefully you took that critique and you became a better adult. And not trying to liken us all to children. No, this is not a manner of doing so at all. But it is simply an analogy to say that critique can hurt. But if it is constructive, then use it and build with it and build yourself up to another level. So this is the introduction to this channel. This is what it's going to be about. And I hope that everyone is able to at least get something, even if you don't agree with everything that I say, even if it sounds very different from the rah rah, hey, you're a king, you're a queen. No, I'm not doing that because in one sentence somebody is saying that, oh, I'm a king, I'm a queen, and in the next sentence you're complaining about oppression. Does that even make sense? What is an oppressed queen, an oppressed king? That's an oxymoron. That doesn't even make any sense. It is inherently contradictory, right? And this is why you're not taken seriously when you say such things. It's laughed at. It's embarrassing. When I hear people constantly saying that, I'm like, this is embarrassing. Why are you at the same time complaining about oppression and then also at the same time saying that you're a king? You just, first of all, humble yourself and take accurate account, right? If you don't take accurate account of a situation, you can't make the best judgments and you can't make the best moves, right? Imagine you're looking to buy a company and nobody looks at the actual accounts. They just read the marketing materials. And you buy the company for a price based on a marketing sales pitch and based off of projections that the marketing team of that company came up with. Are you going to buy that company for a good price? No. You're going to make a bad move because you haven't taken proper account, right? You haven't done proper. So one must take proper account, take proper inventory of your life, humble yourself, and you will grow. You see, humility, it is conducive to growth. Arrogance is is limiting. Once someone believes that I've reached a certain level, I'm this, I'm that, I'm a king, I'm a queen, I'm a god. Well, how much further up can you go from God? How much further up are you going to go from king? But if you humble yourself and you say, you know what, honestly, I'm really just a person that makes about $35,000 a year. I have a high school diploma. You know, I've done some good jobs. I've done some good work here and there, but sometimes I've failed, and you know, my relationship is all right. You know, maybe I'm not married. I mean, you know, take proper account. You know, like, hey, I'm not perfect. I fail at certain things, and I don't read enough, or I don't eat healthy enough, or maybe I don't work out enough, or maybe you know I don't pray enough, or whatever it might be, right? And just be honest with it, you know, and be honest and be real about it. Don't just sit there and say that you're so great because you're afraid to face the man in the mirror, right? Don't stare at a picture rather than looking in the mirror. I mean, you can paint an idealized picture of yourself, but it's not reality. Look in the mirror and say, what is really reality? Where are we really? Right? Let's be frank and honest. I mean, if we rank the major ethnic groups on planet Earth right now, people of African descent are undoubtedly at the bottom, right? Sub-Saharan Africa is in every statistical category almost ranked dead at the bottom. And it's high time to stop blaming white people. And now the new scapegoat, we're going to start blaming Chinese people, even though the Chinese did nothing but make deals that our poor leadership has accepted that sometimes are not good deals. Maybe some of the deals are good, but some of them are objectively bad deals, and we can get into talking about them. Or maybe I'll talk about that on a different channel where I get more into geopolitics. But my perspective is, even if someone comes to your doorstep with, you know, armaments and planes and tanks and ready to invade, the only reason that they're able to conquer you is because you were able to, because you were weak. The strong don't get conquered. The weak get conquered. So we need to be focusing on building ourselves up. I mean, one of the analogies I use, or one of the examples I use, is that of the Jewish community. You know, and I'm not saying that the Jewish people do everything right. I'm not saying that white people do everything right. None of these groups do everything right. They have their criticisms. But what I am saying about the Jewish people is that these people were a people that were very much oppressed. They were oppressed by the Christians in Europe, right? There have been some instances of oppression of them in the Middle East, but there was also oppression of them in the United States. Now, if we look at the Jewish people as a group, in many statistical categories, they're top ranking. If you look at wealth per capita, there is no group on this earth that is close to the Jewish people. Now, if you look at average levels of education, they rank very high. If you look at average levels of intelligence, not in all statistical categories. I've seen evidence that in some other categories, but not so. But not generally, they occupy professions that are that necessitate intellect to a good degree. And I'm not saying that. Don't ever take these things as all Jewish people are this or all black people or African people are this. No, these are just the general statistical realities that, let's be frank and honest, Jewish people are top heavy, meaning that the top performers outweigh, or let's say the high performers outweigh the low performers. They are top heavy when you look at wealth, right? When you look at the positions and statuses that they occupy, right? When you look at even political influence, if you compare even the state of Israel to any country pretty much in Africa, you would pretty much see that, hey, this group is outperforming. We can make excuses about it if we want, but what's more constructive is if we look at the things that that community does well, right? The average Jewish household highly values education. I'm not saying that all African households do not, but I listen to Jewish people speak, and I really get into their culture because this is a culture of a people that were terribly oppressed. Um, and these people are still some of the richest people in the world. They're outsized in their winning of Nobel Prizes in economics, chemistry, you name it, mathematics. Uh, and they're at the point where, let's be honest, Jewish people are at the top of American society. You can't become the United States president if you do not say you support Israel. Point blank. If you don't pledge support for Israel, you won't be the United States president. Now imagine a state of affairs where this American Christian nation is controlled by, um, is lorded over by Jewish people. I'm not criticizing Jewish people for that. Quite frankly, black people, African people should do the same thing. We should be so militant in our self improvement that we eventually own our oppressors. We should be so totally focused and so obsessive about self improvement that it becomes a day where you can't say you're going to be the American president unless you say you support the African Union. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that day where if you don't, do the bidding of the African Union, that you won't even be considered a candidate? Can you imagine that? Close your eyes and imagine that day. Imagine that. But right now, what's the point? Nobody would ever do that. What's Africa? What are you gonna? Africa? What's Africa gonna do? I mean, we got countries that produce oil and gas and can't even keep the lights on. Can you figure that one out for me, please? Right? That is a state of affairs of many things, and we can get into the specifics. But right now, I'm just speaking at a high level. In subsequent episodes, I'm going to pick specific topics and provide sources and provide research. And I'm always going to be open to debate in the comment sections. I'm going to be in there. I'm going to be ready to debate my points. And if when I'm wrong, I'm going to hopefully be willing to accept the times that I'm wrong. But I think that from a general high level of what I'm speaking about right now, I think that it is quite evident, and numerically, statistically, and that we are at the state of affairs that we're at in terms of being at the bottom of ethnic rankings, in terms of most statistical rankings of human endeavor. We're at the bottom, right? Um, and how do we get better, right? How do we become more educated? How do we become better mannered, right? How do we become more strategic with our money, right? How do we build better, stronger, more lasting households and drastically decrease single parenthood, especially in African communities in the Western world? Why are we listening to certain ideologies like liberalism that are not conducive to our state of affairs, right? Being sexually liberal has not worked for African people in the Western world. It has led to the disintegration of the community, right? A community is built of people, then families, then towns or villages or cities, and then, right, states, nations. If you do not have the smallest building blocks together, if the individual is broken and the family is broken, the community cannot be built of broken pieces. It just doesn't work. It won't work. And we are seeing the evidence of that. And this is, of course, not to say that there are not African people all around the world that are exceptional. But I'm not talking about the exceptions. I'm talking about the mass. I'm talking about why we haven't reached a certain level. And it will take time. It's not just going to be talk. And another thing that we're going to do in this channel is that we're actually going to come up with substantive solutions. We're actually going to have constructive, not just debates in the comment section, just to debate. Debate is necessary and we'll have debates. But I also want us to be solution oriented. I don't want us only to talk about the problems, but I want us to actually come up with real solutions that we can try, implement, maybe fail, maybe succeed, and saying, hey, how can we increase the educational level for Africans around the world? One of my solutions that I'm considering is an online school, right, where anybody can tap in from anywhere and receive education that sometimes you can't receive in a public school system, right? Especially depending on where your public school system is located. So this is the purpose of it, and I hope that even if I get harsh in my criticism, people will be able to see the good intention. So this is the African Reform channel, and I'm not going to tell you what my name is. Just call me the Masked Man.